Hi, and welcome to my very first podcast, Queens Behind the Scenes. Wow, this has been like a 3 year vision that has come full circle for me. I am beyond excited. I am even more excited to introduce my guest today. But before I do that, a brief intro into the concept and what I have been thinking about for a few years. Queens Behind the Scenes will explore a variety of topics that focus on empowering women, sharing our personal journeys, and highlighting behind the scenes experiences in different areas. January is all about the new year and creating and hopefully accomplishing our goals. Our first episode is about how queens set and then smash those goals. We all know how the resolutions go. And according to Forbes Magazine, about 80% of people ditch those resolutions by February, which is kind of the idea I thought. I kind of had that number in my head. So today, I have an amazing guest joining me to drop some very precious gems on how to set and smash those goals. The fabulous Dr. Shari Sesay. She is the Chief Executive Officer at the Pediatric Nursing Certification Board. Thank you for being here. You know how much I admire you. I think you're amazing. You're just a wonderful person, smart, all the things. But I just got to ask you, because I know you're a wife, you're a mom, you're a CEO. What's a day look like for you? And how do you kind of stay focused on getting those things done? Because I know for me, it's difficult. I feel like I'm driving around in a circle sometimes. So tell me how you do it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for reaching your goal. How about that, right? So
Thank
we're going to
you.
give you some applause here for reaching your goal and kicking off this wonderful podcast. And I share all the same sentiments about you, a mother, an executive, a go-getter, a friendly, warm, professional woman. We appreciate you. So thank you for doing this for all of us that need a little bit of motivation in our ear. And so, what does a day look like for me? You asked, as a CEO, no 2 days are the same. I am someone that can adapt rapidly to change, right? Because you can't be in this role if you're not ready for what's going to come at you every day, every morning. So each day there is usually something to assess or something to address. And I spend a good part of my day really building and leading my senior team. Communication is key. You can never overly communicate in this role, always looking at new opportunities to grow and sustain our company. I was attending a holiday social just earlier this week, a completely different industry. This is a dear friend of ours. He's a president of a university in the Washington, D.C. area. And the minute that I stood amongst strangers and started talking to them and asking them, why are you here and what do you do? Immediately, I started thinking business opportunity, right? I started thinking networking and growth, but also how can I build long-term relationship with these individuals? And how can that long-term relationship support me as a leader and my organization? So those things are always, always spinning in my head. On a regular day, I'm always having to make decisions that drive our mission forward and also thinking about my staff, the people, because I do firmly believe that the people truly are the engine of an organization. And you can't do this work if you don't think about them and think about their welfare. So I oversee 24 staff members. With myself as CEO, we make 25. And not a day goes by that I don't think about them and their livelihood and their well-being, because when they are in a good physical and mental place, then guess what? We all succeed. So that's what, a typical day,
Yeah.
and the other work and everything else associated with it. But those are the things that I would say cross my mind on a daily basis.
And it's funny because I am a leader as well, right? And so I'm always telling my leaders, because I work as an HR executive. So I always am telling my leaders, like, the people first, right?
Yeah,
Because we can't operate a business without people. And
that's right.
I'm always telling them that, because if these people walk up out of here, we're not going to be able to have anything go on. So I
That's right.
tell them that, right? And so I'm always really intentional about how our leaders set goals for their teams,
Mm-hmm.
goals that are attainable, goals that are smart, goals that are actionable, and goals that have metrics, because you know the saying, like, if you can't measure it, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
And it's, and that's how I move into it. And I was thinking, like, why do I think, like, many people struggle to stick to those New Year's resolution goals. Yeah, and I thought about it and I'm like, okay, well, why is that? Because I've been up and down that road. Listen, been there, saw the episode, been on the repeat. Okay. I have
Ordered the
been,
device,
yeah, ordered the device. No,
membership, and all of
right.
that, right?
All of that.
And then 2 months later, you're like, why am I here?
What
What
is
am I doing?
wait, I'm always like, what's the goal? What did I say? I was going to
And
what
who told me to do this? Like, did I tell myself to do? What was I thinking?
but do you believe in those goals? Because sometimes they're not as intentional, in my opinion. But I would love to get your input on like how you feel about those goals particularly.
Yeah, for me, maybe the problem is the word goals. Maybe that's the problem. It's such a lofty, overused word. And, I'm not going to make up a word, Sharice, for someone to walk away with here. But, we use goals when we talk about work. We use goals when we talk about personal motivation. We use goals when we're trying to purchase a home, so maybe that's the problem. Like I set this goal and all of a sudden there's this angst every day to try to find a way to commit to it. And when I don't, I just feel horrible. So maybe it's, some people say milestones, or maybe it's, this is just a list of things that I just want to see if I can commit to. If I could just get through this short little list of things, I'll feel okay. And so sharing your experience, it happens to all of us. We overly commit. We tell ourselves that, we're capable of doing things, but we don't even think about where we are at that point in time, right? And I think it's this group think might be one way to look at it, that there's something that's socially acceptable. And, if it's a movement, then I need to get on board, right? But we
Right.
all are different. We're
Yep.
different people. And every movement is not for us. And that's why when we fail, we feel like, how did they do it and we didn't do it? But what works for you? What is the thing that you want to at least start taking steps toward?
Yeah.
And just start small and forget about the movement, because we're not chasing anyone and no one's chasing after us. So stop chasing the social movement and just think about, what is it that you need, that one little thing you can do this year to make things better for you. So if we do that, maybe it'll just be a little bit more digestible and hopefully achievable in the long term.
I think you hit the nail on the head too with the digestible part, because even so for me, I get overwhelmed. I
Yeah.
have anxiety. So I get overwhelmed and overstimulated with a lot of like thoughts of getting things done. You know what I mean? But I'm also a go-getter. So I'm gonna get them things done. I'm like, I'm gonna get it done, come hell or high water, I'm gonna get it done. But what I have noticed about like achieving things is that when I remove fear and doubt and these limits that are ingrained in us from a young age, right? We have limits ingrained in us that we don't even, they're subconscious, things that you don't even know that you're limiting yourself from because
Yeah.
something you heard, like the self-fulfilling prophecies. I notice when I remove all of those things, fear and doubt and limits, I can achieve anything I want. I am in a definitely much better space. I feel motivated because I'm not scared and I don't doubt myself. And, so once I do that, and that takes work, that
Yeah.
is like work. I repeat, work, because I have had to say, okay, I need to meditate about this. I need to, manifest this. So,
Yeah.
like, that's kind of how I am. And you're right. It's like maybe these are the things I want to complete,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? These are
Yeah.
the
Keep it
things.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do have a question for you about goals that were goals. Have you ever wanted to complete something? We all have done this and it didn't come to fruition. I don't call things failures because I don't call things failures because I feel like failure is a part of the scientific method, and if they can do it to make medicine, we can do it to live life. So I don't really call them failures. But has it ever been a time when you wanted that thing you wanted to do and then like weren't able to make it happen?
Absolutely. If I'm not a robot, I'm human, right?
Right.
We are not robots. We
We are
are
not robots.
human. And, failure is a part of life. We have to look at it that way. It's inevitable. It's normal. It's absolutely normal. Could you just imagine if all of us were achievers? If we were able to bring every goal to fruition? I mean, I don't know, we would be eating each other alive. It would kind of be scary. We would be so overly competitive that something would just be abnormal, right? So
Yes.
I think there's something important in having variety. That there are some people that are going to be overly successful, overachievers, Sharice. There are going to be some people that are, sort of in the median a little bit. And there'll be some people that are like, you know what? I've tried this every which way and it just doesn't work for me. But sometimes what you find is those people can be very content. They
Yeah.
understand that I gave it a try and it didn't work, but I'm in a place where I'm okay with myself. I can accept that this is who I am and this is what makes me me, and I'm comfortable being here. And believe it or not, sometimes we need those people as overachievers because the overachievers, they take it very hard when they don't meet that end goal. That can be a
Yeah.
big problem. And so the reality is, yes, I failed, of course. And being a CEO, you're expected to fix all problems, Sharice, the staff
Sure.
issues, the
I'm sure.
neighbors, the stakeholders, the list goes on. There's always something coming at you, and you carry that weight of having to feel like you need all to have all the answers. And there are times, no matter how much thought and strategy that I have tried to put into something, it just fell flat. But that to me is what creates my story, right? Falling flat and learning how to be a better leader, learning how to make better decisions, learning things that I should have thought about differently and done differently, not being afraid to tap into people who've done this work before, learning leadership vulnerability. At one point, I wasn't even vulnerable enough to say, how did you get through this? I need help. Right. And so failure can be a good thing. It can make you better. It can make you have better perspective. It can make you reflect. It can make you tell better stories so that you help the next person. So we all fail at goals. But what's important though, when I do fail at a goal, is that I did something. And I always tell my team it's better to do something than to sit back and do nothing at all. So you have to give your credit for at least trying to do something instead of always focusing on the fact that you failed.
Yeah. I agree. You talked about vulnerability, and which I in my role when I am facilitating training, I talk about a vulnerability a lot because one of my goals is to be a vulnerable leader. Now, I'm not going to tell y'all all my business. So we're not going to do that. But I want to be a vulnerable leader and let my team know, it's okay to not get it right this time. Listen, there's been circumstances when I haven't gotten it right, and telling those stories to them that are real stories and being vulnerable. And one of my favorite um scholars, authors, Brene Brown. I'm sure you've heard of
Yes,
Brene Brown.
of course.
Yes, and she talks about vulnerability like a lot. And she said a quote, and I want to get it right, that vulnerability, what did she say? Looks like, I got to get it right. I'm gonna get it right. I'm gonna get it right. But she says it's never weakness, and that is the
That
thing.
is true.
It's never weakness. It can be uncomfortable, but it's not weakness. And I love that because it does make me even more vulnerable to complete things. I was thinking, and when I was trying to prepare for our conversation, and I was thinking about, like, okay, what is my goal for this conversation? I'm sitting here because I've always been taught, they say a goal without a plan is just a wish.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
so a goal without a plan is just like your brainchild. You thought of it, but there's no plan. How much credence do you give to that ideal?
Again, it all depends on individuals. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I have pursued some big goals in life, like one pursuing my PhD. Some things are worthy of a plan, right? The plan was important because I didn't want this process to consume my entire life. And it can. I have peers that have been at this process for almost 10 years. And it can be quite overwhelming. So for me, I went in on full attack, like straight plan. Here is what I need to achieve course wise. This is exactly when I can really ramp up my research. This is what I will not do for the next few years. because I don't have the capacity to do it. And I have to make the sacrifice. I had to sacrifice after evening activities. I had to sacrifice all weekends when I was in classes. I had to sacrifice just extracurricular things that I was generally involved in. And my family is very active. You know, I have an African family, and you're talking about birthday parties and baby showers and
Oh,
all.
y'all do love the party. Y'all do like have an event.
And it was a bit sad where there were times where my husband, I dressed up the kids and I was like, bye, tell them I said hello. But, it's the weekend. And on weekends, where mom is. Mom is in classes all weekend. And so in that particular case, I had to have a very defined plan. These are the things that I'm going to knock out this semester so I can carve out these 6 weeks and focus on my research. Now, in other cases where, for example, perhaps over COVID, because I think some of the things too, in terms of having this conversation, is also letting people know that we are human, Sharice, right? And that, we are dealing with things as women, as executives, as moms, that other people are also dealing with as well. So I'll share some other things. So that was a lofty goal, the PhD, and I was able to do that. But over COVID, like many of us, I struggled with gaining weight. I put on 16 pounds. And there was a time I looked at myself in some pictures and I was like, is that really me?
Me.
I was like,
I've done the same
oh
thing. I've done the same.
I remember one time someone pinching my cheeks and was like, look at your cheeks. And I was like, and I had cheeks to pinch at that time. And I was like, oh my goodness,
Oh goodness. Yeah.
no one has ever done that before. So in that particular case, most people would say, I need to get on a workout plan. But what I did was say, okay, I need to start making small changes. And so I didn't create a plan to do that. And I will say, not only did I lose 16 pounds, I'm down about 25 pounds.
Get it.
I didn't create, and that, that was 2020, right? We were locked in, right? So I
Locked
would
up.
say
Locked up.
about late 2020, early 21, that's where I saw the 16 plus pounds coming in. So in that case, I didn't create a plan, but what I said was, these are the 2 or 3 things that I must do to start getting back on track. And since then, I've always been part of an exercise class. Accountability is important. So we're talking about goals today. I cannot work out on my own. I can't do it. I just
Yeah.
can't. So I go to a class with other women because I see them and they motivate me. And if they don't see me in a week or two, they're like, are you okay? What's going on? So you have to know who you are, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, every day I'm going to go out running in the
Yeah.
morning, because I may not have the tenacity to do something like that. So I said that in that I didn't create a plan, but what I said to myself was, I need to watch what I'm eating. I have to join a class, and I'm going to make sure I retain a certain amount of water every day to at least cleanse and flush out my system. So small steps, right? Those small commitments. Now, several years later, 2024, I'm still working out. I'm still drinking my water, and I'm still being cognizant of those things. And I'm still down. My weight is even less than it was back then. So in that case, a master plan would have overwhelmed me. I would have failed. I just needed to take those small steps and commit to getting to those milestones. So that's where the difference is: a plan, working through the PhD, and then also not a plan, which is, what are the 2 or 3 things I can do to get started today, right? So it just depends on what it is. Don't overthink the process, is what I would say. Sometimes we overthink it, putting it into goals, writing it down, just too much. Just start, just get started.
Yeah. You said a couple of things that I want to pull on a couple of those threads because it resonated so much with me. First, the whole COVID thing. So I got my master's degree during COVID. I,
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was supposed to be in person. So it was supposed to be in person. We went to the first class and it was on weekends. So I only met one weekend a month and everything else was like coursework, right? So I deliberately went to a in-person class because I don't do very well without interaction. I'm a very outgoing person. I'm social. So I needed that social, engagement. And when we got locked up, I literally thought about, should I like quit this program? Because I was like, I don't know that I'm going to get out of this what I actually was planning to do. Well, I didn't quit it. I didn't. I was like,
Good for
I'm in
you.
it. Because I was like, I really want this. So I wanted to pull on that thread, but I also wanted to pull on a thread that you had said around these lofty goals. And that is just so, it resonates with me because sometimes the worst thing to do for me is disappointing myself, right? And so when I overpromise and underdeliver for me, that right there hurts me more. So that has helped me compartmentalize my goals. Like what I want to do, I have to like compartmentalize them. I wanted to like start this podcast. I was like, okay, I told you it took me 3 years. Part of that was doubt and fear, but part of that was just
It's not where you got started. It's how you,
it's how you finish. It's how you
you
finish.
finish.
And
Exactly.
we're here today.
That's
And we're
right.
here today. And
Yes.
so you really like hit on those things because I think any listener would say like, oh wow, I'm so overwhelmed because I want to do this and this in the new year, when it's really like just change some habits. Some
Yes.
habit changes really work. So that's where I am. I want to get inspirational here on us. Can you share a story about when you achieved something you initially thought was impossible? I know we all have, and I know you got a story, so I would love to hear it.
I kind of hinted to that. We've all done a lot of great things. I commend, we're talking about women and, women really stepping up and stepping into it, right? We're often all things to all people. So I commend
Mhm.
all of us women for being mothers and being wives, being partners, and also being supporters and being coaches. And for some people, this is impossible, believe it or not, right? But we carry the load and we carry the load for many and we do it quite well. I mentioned just a tad bit earlier, one of the things that was a very difficult goal. And I asked myself, why the heck am I going through this? Like, who told me to do this? But I knew that I had to do it for a few reasons, which was obtaining my higher degree, which is to be more competitive in the association sector. So I am an association executive upwards for well over 25 years. And I knew that at some point in my career, Sharice, that in order for me to really move into the realm of chief executive officer, this is when I was in a vice president role. And I was like, I'm doing the job. I'm doing the job, but doing it quietly behind the scenes, right? And so it's time for me to step up. It's time for me to be forward facing and do it. That was a big commitment because I was still an executive. I was doing fine. I still had upward mobility in different ways. There was no need for me to give up years of my life and take on this sacrifice, but I needed to do it. I'm a lifelong learner and I needed to commit and personally challenge myself. And I think for me, one of the ways that I really pushed through, I did find out from the program that I completed that I was, I think, the second in the program's history. I mean, this institution has a long, long history to ever complete their PhD in that amount of time. So I completed it in quite an unusual early time frame. And that's because I truly compacted courses and research work all year long for every year that I was in a program. I never took a break. I took courses in the spring, in the summer, in the wintertime. I went around the clock nonstop. And I will say that was probably not the best thing to do. There were times I was ready to quit. And my husband said, no way, we've been gone too far. You are not going to stop this and then try to start over later. But what I will say is, I also told myself, I don't want this to control me for 5 or 10 years. I'm going to control the process. And so I did control the process in a way that I felt was most feasible to me to get done again in the most within the shortest period of time possible. That was challenging because again, it wasn't something I was doing for my health. I didn't need it in my field to get to where I am today, but it did certainly become a booster because soon after that, I obtained a CEO role. And also, I felt that it just gave me a different level of confidence. And it also put me in a tier of individuals that generally, there's just a small tier of individuals who actually go after doctorate degrees. And I felt that, it's all about the mind and control. Like you can actually position yourself to do things if you just give yourself time and patience and you control the scenario. This is what I want. This is when I want it by. And I will not be a subject to this PhD program. I will complete it and I will be done and I'm going to move on with my life. And when I took that stance, it worked for me wholly. So sometimes you have to take control of it instead of letting it take control of you. So that's sort of what I learned through that process.
Love hearing that. And you talked about mindset, and I'm going to pull a thread there because we all know mindset matters. Like mindset matters.
Yeah.
And so like what mindset shifts, because we always have to shift our mindset depending on what we're doing and how we're doing it. What kind of mindset shifts have helped you stay focused on what particular thing you're doing, especially during like a tough time like COVID? I mean, that was a tough time to be
Yeah.
completing. I mean, I know it was for me. It was hard. It was hard. We couldn't go nowhere. So how did you deal with that? Because mental health matters. And how did you deal with that during that time?
Yeah, my mindset shift is, it's you. You have to take care of you the same way that if this were anyone else, you would give your time, your attention, your resources to make sure that they were okay. If this Sharice were, a friend, someone in your family, a close coworker, you would do it for them. If they said, "I'm struggling with this, I'm concerned, I don't know how it got here," you would be online pulling together all the
Yeah.
resources, maybe even making phone calls for them. But we never take the time to do it for ourselves. And if we can't take care of ourselves, as they tell us, how are we going to take care of other people? And so the mindset shift is, let me do something for myself. Because if I feel better, I'll be in a better position to even be a better person for my family, be a better person for the people that I support at work, my coworkers, be a better agent to my neighbors, to my church, to my friends. And so the shift has to be, stop trying to be all things to all people when you aren't even being that thing for yourself, right?
Yep.
And that's important. So that's the stance I take on in life now, that as much as I give and do for others, and I am a doer and I am a giver for those who know me. So when your podcast gets out there, they'll be like, "Oh, there's shit." And it's in me naturally. I'm a helper. I don't like to see people struggle. I naturally will just want to help and step in and say, "What can I do?" But if I can do that for so many people out there, why can't I do that for myself? So I can give you a whole list of things today, like stay organized, be positive, be patient, get accountability partners. But the most important thing, you all, women, we got to take care of ourselves. We have got to pause for a second and say, I have got to find time to make sure I also take care of me. I am no good if I'm giving my all to everybody else, but I can't even do the same for myself.
Amen. Get somebody else to do it because sometimes we just need a break. And I was saying this like just recently because I'm a doer as well. I think
Yeah,
we have that in common, Sherry. And I do. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. And then I'm sitting back, I'm like, oh, I'm overwhelmed because I'm not taking care of me. I'm not taking care of my needs, my physical needs, and when we talk about self-care sometimes folks think it's this indulgence, and
that's right.
yeah, you know what I mean? They think it's this indulgence. To me, I told my husband the other day because my husband it works remotely, and the other day I told him, I said, you know what self-care would be for me today? If y'all would just leave for 1 hour and just let me have the house to
That's right.
myself.
Yeah.
Just to get my mind right and really try to like focus on the next thing. And so it's not all indulgence, taking care of yourself. It is really other things like having alone time and being able to meditate and being able to have an opportunity to fill your cup up with some type of intellectual stimulation or people who are pouring into your cup. That is self care to me.
Exactly. And when you can do that, when we can do that, because today you're talking about the women, the queens, we call that whatever we want to call it, right? We call it our commitment to ourselves. We call it goals, right? We started on the conversation around goals. But
Yep.
it really starts with, can I make room in this life for me? That's all it is. Half the time, the reason we can't even commit to even the basic of goals, that word you use, is because we can't even make time for ourselves. It's just
No, I know.
gonna work. I don't know why I did this. This is a waste. Like there's no way between kids off between. We have got to make time for us, and everything around us tells us that we can do this every day. Every block, there is a massage envy. There is a Pilates. There is a free exercise session. We must start to prioritize ourselves. And you're right. It's not self indulgence. It's taking care of me so I can be better equipped to continue to serve all the other people that I'm serving. I'll tell you, recently I was at the nail salon, and then my father called, and I said, "Yeah, I'm at the nail salon." And he said, "Oh, okay, you're there again?" He doesn't remember the last time I said that was over a month ago. And he said, "Oh, you're always there, right?" I said, "This is my time to myself, Dad." I said, "It sounds to you like I'm always here, but actually, no, I actually should be here even more." But to him, it was kind of like, "Why are you there again? Like, what is the purpose?" So you can't let someone else make you feel guilty or think something is wrong with self care. And self care leads to those self commitments, those goals, all the things we're talking about today. But it starts with saying, I'm going to create some space for me.
It does. It definitely does. So I have this very interesting question,
Okay.
and I will answer it as well because I think we both would have a story. If you could go back and tell young Shari some advice, what would you tell young Shari about goals, about career? What would you say?
Well, it starts with when I was young, believe it or not, and people will say things like, "What? That's not true." I was very shy. I was so shy. How about this? That if I saw anyone standing on one side of the street, Sharice, I would cross the street. I would cross it. I would see them at a distance, and then I'll start making my way across because I didn't even want to walk past that individual, those people, whether they were kids, adults. I was so shy. I didn't even want them to see me. So I'm like, if I can cross the street and maybe walk on the other side of the tree. And so one would be like, really? She's a CEO. I grew out of that because I had to. I was like, this is, life changes, things happen. As I started to get into high school, college, getting so engaged in activities, that shyness just started to go away. And so, if there's one advice I could give, is to be okay with who you are, to um, just have confidence. Maybe I was shy because back then I didn't have the confidence I needed in myself, right? And now I talk to people about just trusting their instincts, trusting that they're meant to be where they are. My mindset has shifted so much, but that also comes with growth, education, maturity, all these things that I probably wasn't thinking or didn't have when I was little. So what I would tell myself is, it's okay. Like, stop worrying about all that. Stop worrying about what they're going to think, what they're going to say. It's okay. Be you. You're fine just the way you are. And today I'm like this. I'm like, why do people worry about that? I'm good just the way I am. But I wish that I could have told myself that years ago. It took me a while to get out of that type of thinking about always worrying about the other person and not worrying about myself. And maybe it's a thing we women have, because it goes back to what do we need to nourish us inside to make us whole, so that we can become better people, not just for ourselves, but for other people, right? For the external environment. But it starts with inside of us. There's so much that happens inside the mind, the stomach, the body. We need to have that confidence and be whole inside.
I love that. For me, one of the things I really struggled with, and I have to say, I mean, for longer than a child, like for, I think my early adult life, is caring so much what other people thought about me. I would care so much. Well, what is so and so going to think? I mean, actually making decisions. I mean, now I think about it and I'm like, are you kidding me? But like, even making these because of who I am now. But then I really cared. And I think, like you said, experience, life experience, work, growth, all of that plays a part in making you who you are. But I will tell you what happened. I went to West Virginia State University.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And I remember feeling so confident. I saw gorgeous women who looked like me, who were smart, who look, they was walking around the yard like, hey, they wearing their earrings, their outfits is popping, and I'm popping right with them. I was like, this is my home. And so I actually was like, I gotta start thinking independently of who I am and because I remember one time in high school, this one main thing always stuck out for me. And it was, I remember my mom bought me a pair of bell bottoms from this store called, girl, the store, do you remember Merry Go Round?
Of course, that's got the Bart Simpson
Yeah,
jeans that I
yeah,
begged my father
yeah.
for.
Yes, my mom bought me a pair of jeans, some bell bottoms from the merry-go-round, and I would not. Them things had tags on them for years. I was like, I'm not wearing them. I was like, Mom, I am not wearing them to school. People are gonna tease me. And I had one friend, and she said, if you wear yours tomorrow, I'm gonna wear mine.
Hmm.
And she wore hers. I ain't wearing mine. I was at the bus stop. I have those bell bottoms on. The funniest thing, when I went to college, I took those bell bottoms with me. You would have thought I would have left them at home. I wore those bell bottoms. I think it was to a Q party. I wore those bell bottoms. I got the most compliments from
Right.
the, yes. And I was like, now I should have been wearing them in high school. I should have wore those bell bottoms in high school. But it's just that like idea, right? That like you're letting other people's thoughts like control you, which is insane. But as a young adult, it's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Right. Anywho, I know that we have all been inspired, and I wanted to ask you this question because I'm sure you have been inspired. But who has inspired you the most in your journey, in your career, and in your life?
So that is always, I'm going to tell you, it's one of the hardest questions. I've been asked that before.
So hard.
I'm glad I don't have to choose one person. The other thing is sometimes in terms of overthinking, I always tell people stop overthinking it. You know what? This doesn't have to be one person. This doesn't have to be one situation. I will say that this series of events that I have been able to experience growing up, college was a big deal. So I wouldn't even say who, but, it's the where, when, what, how. Going to college really gave me a boost of confidence. Getting involved in Student Government Association, pledging a sorority, helped me to understand there was this leader within me. It was deep in there. And just because you're growing up shy doesn't mean that you're not a leader. It doesn't mean that you're not an individual who wants the best out of people, who cares about. I've always been, studious, always helpful, but just shy, right? So going to college and finding myself and saying, wow, there are pockets of spaces in here that I see myself that I can contribute to and I can be who Shari is. And so I think that whole experience has inspired me and all of the people. And also attending an HBCU. I mean, it's a historically Black college and university. And, there are many opinions as to whether HBCUs work for some and work and don't work for others. But for me, and knowing what I was experiencing at that time, I needed an institution that was going to say, you can be whoever you want to be here. And when
Hmm.
I walked out of there, I was like, I was being whoever I wanted to be. I was leading this, I was doing that, I was involved in this, I was in homecoming queen stuff. I was like, wow, potential. And so there is a reason and a season for everything. So I ended up there for a reason. And then, moving into the association sector, I am a diehard association professional. Much of what we do is very mission centric. There are many associations out there, and some of them, the basic ones, American Heart Association, that's on your milk carton. I mention
Yeah.
to people because they, American Education Association. But moving into the association sector and seeing women running organizations, we are primarily women in the association sector, about 70%, and saying to myself, wow, they are leading and they are representing and they are advocating. And I want them to take me under their wing. So I had the nerve to ask a few of them to be my mentor and to take me directly under their wing. So there is not even one person, because I would be wrong to even say a name here, of all the people that have crossed my life, that have taken the time when I said, I want to be vulnerable to say, how do I get there? How do I become part of that group? You belong to that organization? Are they looking for anyone else? All of those people that put their hand out and say, you know what, I'll make the introduction for you. So it's taking in those moments, right, through every phase of your life, whether you're like, why am I here or not? There were times I'm like, what the heck am I doing in this
Why?
room? There's a reason why you're in that room. And it's all those experiences that have really supported me and given me the confidence, and have been, I guess, to your question, but have been the influencers in my life along the way. So,
Yeah. I had a similarly. I can say for the like top three people, I would have to say my mom is my biggest cheerleader. I'm going to tell you right now, my mom will cheer me on. I don't care if I'm sewing a basket full of jelly beans. Okay. My mom is going to cheer me on. So she is definitely, someone that has I've always looked up to, but also who has given me that oomph, to be able to accomplish like the things that I wanted to. And she's inspired me because she believed in me. She believed in everything that I wanted to do. I would say, like you said, every stage of life. I would say my daughter, she's so inspirational. My daughter's 26. She is a nurse practitioner. She is married now to a wonderful young man. But she is like, when I look at her at my age, like me at her age, I'm like, wow, you are bold. She is bold. She is no nonsense. She is so progressive. And that is so inspirational to me. And then lastly, I had a boss, Danny Hill. Amazing. My last boss, she uh, CHRO, took me under her wing. We have, a lot of shared experiences, so that also helped. But she really showed me the way, and she showed me the way and how to get to be an HR executive, to be a good HR leader. I'm a pretty pragmatic person, and she kind of brought that out of me as well. So I really, really look up to her, and I'm inspired by her. And then lastly, I have a boss, one of my other bosses. She's from Barcelona, Sandra Martinez. She showed me the world. If it wasn't for Sandra, I wouldn't have traveled to half the places. I have been to almost every continent in the world. And that is because she showed me the world. And I always say, Sandra showed me the world and Danny showed me the way. And I firmly believe that. And I am so thankful for those women, all of them, all four of them, or however many that I said, because they've played such a wonderful role in crafting me into who I am today. So
That's
kudos to
beautiful.
them.
That's beautiful to hear. And I think a big part of that too is the reason it happened that way for you, Sharice, is because you allowed it to happen.
Yes.
People can't, I guess they can't reach you, right? If you close the door. We have to back the vulnerability. It's okay that we don't know. It's okay that we don't have the answers. It's okay that we're uncomfortable with it, because there is someone out there that wants to help you, wants to teach you, like you said, show you the world. But you have to be approachable. Sometimes I know that people are very closed and locked, and it's like it's very hard. It's even hard for people who want to help you to even approach you, right? So you have to give a little something, right, and let them in. And that's so important as women, because sometimes we can be very guarded, and guarded is understandable because of some of the experiences that we've had, and we have to protect ourselves and we have to shelter ourselves. So I totally get that, but there are many good people out there that want to help. Yeah.
There are, and I am wrapping you up with one last question, and it's a question. It's actually some gems you're going to drop, I'm sure. What is one simple thing that listeners can do today to take the first step forward to completing a goal, whatever it is they want to do? Just one simple thing.
One simple thing that listeners can do to take the first step forward to completing a goal, is by asking themselves, how is this going to make me feel by the time that I'm done? How is this going to make me feel? Not the neighbor, not your partner or your spouse, not your child, but how is this going to make me feel? And if you say that and at the end you smile, like, I can envision this. Wow, this would be amazing for me. Oh, then it's time for you to take that step. But if the answer is, oh, I'm going to have to switch my schedule around. Okay, I don't
Yeah.
think I'm going to be able to get up that early. Now I'm going to lose an additional 3 hours of sleep. Then guess what? That goal is not for you. You're already setting yourself down the wrong path, right?
Right.
How is that goal going to make you feel by the time you're done? That's going to give you the answer that you need to get started.
I love that answer. Well, I obviously want to thank Shari. She's a boss, but more than anything, she's just an amazing human who I very much respect. She has an aspirational story that I wanted to create a platform for her to tell it. In addition to the podcast, please go to our website at www.queensbehindthescenes.com and download our free goal tracking e-workbook. Each week, we want to provide a resource of some sort to help you boss up like a queen. Thanks again, and tune in next week where we are going to have another amazing guest discussing confidence. And we talked about that today, Shari. So we're going to be talking about confidence, and boy, does this guest have some confidence, and deservedly so. We'll welcome Deb Garcia Garcia, who is the Chief Development Officer at Doctors Without Borders, another dynamic queen. Thank you all for joining. And thank you, Shari. I appreciate you more than you ever will know.
Thank you, Sharice, and thank you all for joining.
Thanks.